This episode of the MLB Guardcast is sponsored by Sadnap Studios. Are you in need of assistance when it comes to digital arts, logo creation, website design, brand building, or designing merch? Then look no further than Sadnap Studios. The team at Sadnap Studios wants to help and make your dreams into reality. Everything is original and organically created, nothing AI. You can follow them and check out some of their incredible work on Instagram at sadnap_studios_art drop. Thanks again to the folks at Sadnap Studios. Go Guards. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time for another episode of the MLB Guardcast. This is episode number 32. I am Mike Vorhies. With me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, statistician extraordinaire, meteorologist extraordinaire, and the best friend of mustard, Bryan Shaw. Bryan, welcome into the show, sir. How are you? Happy Wednesday. It's a weird Wednesday off day.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. A short 2-game series against Detroit, which the boys swept.
I was gonna say I have my broom handy. I got my broom handy,
which was nice because they've struggled with Detroit a little bit. They sweep the series. They finish July above 500. They finish against Detroit with a winning record.
They do.
And so a lot of positives to end July as we head into August.
Yes, so yesterday was the Major League Baseball trade deadline. No matter where you were, I know several folks, myself included, I'm sure Bryan as well, were refreshing the X notifications and the posts every minute or so to get the latest and greatest news out of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. It ended.
I had Jeff Passan and Ken Rosenthal on alert.
Exactly. I think I did as well. As I was also watching the ESPN Major League Baseball trade deadline special, as well as in the background, I had a split screen with the Major League Baseball Network's trade deadline stuff. So I was covered in all bases. The trade deadline ended at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, although some trades do in fact come in after that 6 p.m. deadline because of medicals and paperwork and things like that. But they're usually agreed upon before the
Josh
6
Bell,
p.m.
for
deadline.
example,
That's
one of those deals last year. We traded Josh Bell, and we didn't find out about it until about 6:15.
Right. Well, the Guardians didn't make one move. They made two moves, folks. We knew we needed a bat. We needed a pitcher. The Guardians did just that. Just when we thought they weren't going to do anything, they shocked us and made two trades during their two games.
I thought
I was a little nervous because usually around the trade deadline, asking prices are astronomical.
And they were.
It showed.
They were astronomical.
And it showed, yes, absolutely, for relief pitching, for starters, for bats. I mean, you name it. And the Guardians made two deals. During their games, they made one on, I believe it was Monday night. We found out that a man that has been after Bryan's heart for a long time. Bryan has loved this player and said that he would fit in extremely well with the Guardians, and that is outfielder Lane Thomas of the Washington Nationals, now a Cleveland Guardian. He will platoon. He'll probably play right field a lot. He'll play center field as well. Bryan, what were your thoughts when you saw the trade come in? I know you were pretty shocked when I texted you that it had happened.
You beat me to that one because I was watching the game. I wasn't paying attention to Twitter at the time. So you beat me to that one, and I got the text, and I had to make sure, not that I don't trust you, but you never know when it comes to the news cycle.
Exactly. I have fallen victim to fake accounts before, but this was verified not once, not twice, but 4 times. So I had a feeling it was true.
Yes.
So
and
we were happy
let me say that I was very excited. So what Mike is talking about is I wanted Lane Thomas last year at the trade deadline.
You did.
If they weren't going to sell, or when we thought they might buy and make a run because they weren't that far out, even though they were only a 500 team, just the rest of the division was terrible. I wanted Lane Thomas last year. I thought he fit Guardians baseball great. I liked his game, and he had several more home runs last year than he did this year. He would have led the outfield in home runs, I think, combined. Like,
Oh
that's how
wow.
bad they
Yeah.
were collectively as an outfield last year. That's not the case so much this year. But I really liked Lane Thomas last year. He was one of the guys that I wish that they would have went out and got if they were going to bring him in. I'm thrilled they brought him in this year. For some reason, he just wasn't as much on my radar as a trade target. I didn't see anybody talking about him. And when
No.
Washington didn't trade him last year, I figured he was just one of those guys that was not going to get traded. And there was a lot of them in this deadline. So he wasn't even so much on my radar as a target for them as some of the other guys, like when we had talked about Randy Rosarena, and he
Yeah.
was a target and somebody I would have loved to have been on this team. But really happy with the Lane Thomas move. I think he's going to be one of those guys that people fall in love with. I know that not a lot of people really know who he is. In fact, I had a couple of people tell me on Twitter the only reason I know who he is because he wouldn't shut up about him last year.
Well,
And
what happens when you play in smaller markets? There are people that don't get the national attention. Jose Ramirez is a huge example of that.
well, and
Without
also
the home run derby and his all-star game appearances, like people don't know how great Jose Ramirez is.
and also Guardians fans in the American League aren't going to know as much about National League players.
That's true too.
So there was that, but I think Lane Thomas is great. I think if you look at just his year, he has had a bit of a down year. However, there's a caveat to that, and he started off slow, got injured in late May, came back in late June. Or no, excuse me, I think it was late April and came back in late
Late
May. So he's
April,
had a
came
good.
back late May.
So then, throughout June and July, since coming back from his injury, he has an 833 OPS and a 133 WRC plus. Now, he hits really well against lefties, but that statistic is against both righties and lefties. And to go a step farther, in that time frame against left-handed pitching in the last 2 months, he almost has a 1,000 OPS.
Yeah, we'll take that. This
The only
this
the
team needs offense, so we'll
In
take
that
it.
time frame, the only two players on the Guardians that have been better in that 2 month span have been Jose and Quan.
Yeah. And truth be told, Stephen Kwan, who was once batting 363, he has cooled off significantly.
Sure, they all have. They all had a terrible
It's
July,
it
and
it
somehow they still finished with a winning record. I think we talked about that last time, where just everybody was below average for the month of July. So just everybody had a rough July. So I think uh, uh, Lane Thomas is fast. I think he's going to play good right field for us. He had that knee injury, but he seems to have come back strong. His power numbers aren't as high as they were last year in terms of home runs, but you never know when Chris Valleca gets his hands on him, and he's changed the approach of a lot of our players, think Stephen Kwan, in terms of hitting more home runs. You never know what that might do for him being in our organization. And I think that's going to be true for our other trade piece as well. But to stick with Lane, um, they optioned Will Brennan.
Yeah, that
So
was a little bit of a shock. I thought Will was safe. I thought the guy that would be the odd man out was going to be Daniel Schneemann
yes,
because Schneemann had been not hitting well. He's a great defender, and I assumed he has a few more options than what Will Brennan has. But
so I
again,
think I
Guardians see
agree.
something that I don't.
I agree, and I think the reason is we thought that too is because Will's a lefty. So you would have thought that there would be that Will Lane split of righty lefty in right field. I think the reason he got optioned is because either he's still injured from his back injury or his oblique injury or whatever it was. He doesn't have a hit in July. So he's really struggled in July more so than a lot of guys. So I don't know if he still needs time to recover or if that injury has caused him to not play the same and he needs some adjustment. I think he'll be back.
Well,
Um,
there may be somebody else that's kind of lit a fire uh, in that right field uh, platooning, and that's John Kenzie Noel. He
yeah,
has been playing extremely well. I was griping to you that he needed more at bats, and
yes.
apparently Stephen Vogt heard the podcast and was like, you know what, Mike might be right. Let's put Big Christmas in the lineup, and he's responded. And I think he is going to be a staple in our lineup for quite some time. I think that between being able to play first base, DH, and right field, and potentially left field, given Stephen Kwan some breaths, I'm happy with that. Will
And
Brennan go to Columbus, figure it out. I mean, that's
and
pretty much what it is.
and Thomas can play center field as well if you put
Can
Noel in right field. Noel's been hitting the cover off the ball. Like his home runs are just monstrous.
Mhm.
And I agree. I think that could also be a reason, but I really, really like the Lane Thomas move. I mean, how long have we been clamoring for right field help? It has been a
It's
struggle in
been
right field
it's
for a long
been
time.
quite a while. Yes, we thought John Kenzie could be that guy, but it's also nice to have a little bit of help. Center field has been a little bit of a hiccup this year. I don't want to take anything away from Tyler Freeman or uh,
Angel
Angel
Martinez, yeah.
Martinez. Both of them have played well defensively. It's offensively that we kind of need a little bit of help. Yesterday, Freeman plays, goes 2 for 2, steals a base, gets hit by a pitch. So when Freeman plays, he hits. When Angel Martinez plays, he's starting to hit a little bit. I didn't like that he was hitting fifth yesterday, Angel Martinez. That was a bit odd for me, but I guess they're just trying to figure out where in the lineup. I assumed him and Lane would have been flipped. Lane would have been hitting five, and Angel would have stayed in that 2 hole. But
Yeah, I'm not
I,
sure. I'm sure they're still going to work around it a little bit. It could vary based on what pitcher they're facing. You know,
mhm,
maybe Lane is the two hitter against righties, but then is the five hitter for more cleanup purposes against lefties because he just smacks the cover off the ball. I mean, it could be also one of those things where, David Fry had been there for a while, but he's also struggling in July.
yeah.
Um, he seems to be rebounding a little bit recently, but I think the lineup's a little bit of amoeba, and they're working through it, and now they've got a couple more guys to work through. So we'll see what happens there. But that's my thoughts on Lane Thomas. I love the move.
I
I,
do.
I would have
Yeah.
liked Randy Rosarena too. I would have thought the same things that I
Yeah.
think if they would have gotten him. But I'm glad they got somebody. I'm glad they got a bat. I know it's not maybe a flashy name that a lot of people may be hoping for, but I don't think that if you look at a Rosarena and Lane Thomas's stats, they're very similar in terms of
They are.
OPS and WRC plus. Um, Arena's average is a little bit down this year compared to previous years, and so is Thomas. But and his home runs are a little bit down. But if you look at OPS and WRC plus, they have similar stats.
Well, and I'll give a huge shout out to Lane Thomas. Not only did he find out about the trade Monday night, he gets on a flight, a late night flight from Washington to Cleveland, lands in Cleveland. They play a game at 1:10 Eastern time. He told Stephen Vogt on the phone when he had found out that he had been traded. Stephen Vogt called to welcome him to the team. And Lane's response was, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Put me in the lineup. I'm ready to play." And
How
that's
much do you think he
exactly.
slept?
Probably not very.
Yeah, and
And
he
when
still got a hit.
he struck out his first 2 at bats, and I'm like, all right, maybe not play today because you're a little tired. Then he gets a hit. It's great. I know a lot of people were upset with the prospects that went back to Washington in the deal. We got rid of infielder Jose Tena, but I understand Tena has had his chances a little bit. He was blocked at pretty much any position.
And it's
So
weird to me that people would complain about the prospects because it feels like the same people are also complaining that we're hoarding prospects and
yep,
complaining that we have this infield log jam and they should use some of the infield log jam to get other players. Well, that's exactly what they did. And here's the other
yep.
thing. You have to give up good to decent players to get good players. Nobody's just going to take a collection of trash
This
and be
isn't
like,
this isn't
yeah, give me a good
MLB the
hitter.
show. It's not MLB the show when you can force the trade. That That's not how it happens in real
But
life.
you
You
also
actually have to,
can't take five garbage prospects and say, take our five trash players and give us one good player. Like it doesn't add up
right,
like that. So yeah,
right.
you got to give up good players.
So left-handed pitching prospect Alex Clemmy, who a lot of people really liked, and they were kind of shocked that he was dealt. He's a lefty. Looked pretty good in his last start. And then shortstop Rafael Ramirez Jr. is the other prospect that goes back to Washington. I don't know a ton about him other than he's a big, tall, lanky player with some power. So good luck to him. Once a Guardian, always a Guardian. Once an Indian, always an Indian. That's how I felt. I wish him nothing but success in Washington. But guess what? This is a business. We needed help. We had to make a trade in order to get help. And I think Lane Thomas is really going to help us. By the way, Lane Thomas has 25 stolen bases.
Yeah, he's a fast
So
guy.
he fits our mold. He only makes $5 million, $5.4 million.
And they have him for next year too.
Exactly. And he's arbitration eligible. We may be able to sign him. Who knows? Let's see. We got the rest of the season to go. We're still 20 plus games over 500, still winning ball games. But guess what, folks? The Guardians heard our cries about we need a starting pitcher. We had Joey Cantillo called up, made his major league debut. He went 3 1/3 innings. So we knew we needed some help. And I loved reading Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, yesterday when the Guardians made this move and everybody just immediately dumped on the Guards for this trade. The Guardians traded with the San Francisco Giants and got former All-Star Alex Cobb. Now, if the name rings a bell, folks, Alex Cobb pitched for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in 2013 and beat the Guardians in a one-game playoff
Against Danny
to put
Salazar.
the Rays in the playoff. So full circle, Stephen Vogt, Alex Cobb used to be teammates. They're actually friends. They've already spoke, and Alex Cobb is ready to come to Cleveland. He was hurt. He has not pitched this season. He had hip surgery towards the end of last season, started to come back, was doing rehab, and then he had some shoulder fatigue, so they sat him down for a bit. He got over the shoulder fatigue, and then he developed a blister. So it's just been one thing after another, unfortunately for Cobb. But he's an all-star from last year, folks. This is a huge high risk,
Has
high
potential.
reward type move. Yeah.
I'd say it's low
Alex
risk.
Cobb,
I mean,
it
there's not a
is
lot
high
of
risk
risk.
just because of his injury history, I think. It's a little higher than normal. But if he can come back, he's a heck of a fifth starter. I'll take him.
His last three
Why
full
not?
seasons, he's had ERAs under 4.
Right.
3.76, 3.73, 3.87. I I find it intriguing. I think it's creative.
Hmm.
It kind of reminds me of the Josh Donaldson move where Donaldson was hurt for most of the
Yeah.
season and they brought him in.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about a blister. From what I've read, he's done very well in AAA in his rehab starts. He's going to do one more AAA start in Columbus, and then it looks like he's going to get called up to Cleveland. Given how the starter market was,
Yeah. That's
if Cobb, other than Flaherty, if Cobb it is who he was, he could end up being the best of the bunch. If I know that's a big if because he was injured and he had hip surgery and all those
right.
things, but you didn't have to give up nearly as much for him because of that. And there was some weirdness around the starter trade market because you had two of the biggest selling teams in the Tigers and the White Sox in your own division, and apparently they didn't want to deal with you.
Nope.
I would have really liked Fetty. The White
Yeah.
Sox traded Eric Fetty for a utility infielder.
Yep.
Why?
We
I mean,
discussed that, and that was a shock.
so
But do you blame these divisional teams? Why do they want to trade them to a division rival and have to play against them, knowing how good they are? That's not smart
because
business.
well, I don't know. I disagree. If you're going to get a better player, this is about long term. The White Sox aren't competing next year. By the time you would have to
No.
face Fetty in a meaningful game, he's going to be on a different team.
It'll be interesting to hear exactly because we'll never hear the actual facts. How close the Guardians were to obtaining Flaherty, Fetty, We heard Blake Snell's name thrown around. Like there were different
Well,
players that potentially could have come to Cleveland, but when the asking price for a lot of these players was absolutely astronomical, look what the San Diego Padres gave up to get a reliever from the Miami Marlins by the name of Tanner Scott, who has a 1.18 earned run average, has 20 some saves. They gave up their second, fourth, and fifth prospect to
yeah.
get him. They
So
basically emptied the cupboard for a reliever that you don't know if he's going to be able to keep those numbers going this season. That's a
right.
huge trade.
I can only judge on the guys that were traded. So Blake Snell, Lazardo, guys like that that didn't get moved, and hitters too. We were talking about Bo Bichette, we were talking about Vlad Guerrero, we were talking about Taylor Ward,
Mm-hmm.
Renhefo, um, Kim, Brandon Lowe, Crochet, all those
Yeah.
guys. We were talking
And
about all
wait,
those guys.
Crochet went where exactly? Oh, that's
Nowhere.
right. Nowhere, because guess
So
what? He threatened to not pitch in the postseason, threatened to sit out unless he got a contract extension. I'm pretty sure he shot himself in the foot with the statements that he made.
yeah, but the my point is that I can only judge based on who was traded. So from some of the starters, we mentioned Fetty, you mentioned Flaherty. Now, Flaherty, an interesting thing had come up after the fact that the Yankees almost traded for him, but then backed out of the deal because they didn't like his medicals.
Yeah, that's
So
scary if the
there was
Yankees
that.
backed out.
Plus, then also, it's the Tigers, and maybe they didn't want to deal with Cleveland. Um, the one I think that is tough that I really would have liked. I think he would have fit. The teams usually mess and I think we talked about him last time, was Zach Eflin. I would have liked to have
Yeah.
made that deal, but I think the hang up there is that the prospects that they wanted in return, the main piece was a top pitching prospect, and unfortunately, we don't have that right now.
Yeah, not a
We
not a triple A type.
If
I
you
think
look
that's
at our
what.
top prospects in terms of like who could have equaled what was given up by the Orioles, our top pitching prospect is Daniel Espino. I really doubt that Tampa Bay wanted him. He's been injured. He's barely pitched in like 3 years.
Yeah.
The next one's Joey Cantillo,
Yeah,
and
he's not
he's
going
our
anywhere.
ninth prospect. And he's close to getting ready, but maybe they didn't want him either. And then from there, you've got single A Jackson Humphreys, and I'm not familiar with him at all, but I
Nope.
would imagine that that didn't line up with what um, Tampa got in return for Eflin, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
why that trade
absolutely.
didn't match up. So
I'm
unfortunately, when
sure.
Antonetti says like sometimes it just doesn't work or it doesn't match up, this is kind of goes back to what I said earlier. Like you can't just say, well, we'll give you another pitcher, we'll give you another hitter, and the sum of the parts don't necessarily always equal. If what they wanted was a top pitching prospect in return for Eflin, and we don't have that, we're SOL.
Next caller, please. That's pretty much what it was. I'm sure Chris Antonetti in the front office were on the phones unbelievably for the last few weeks trying to make trades because they knew we needed help. But here's the thing, and I love that the folks were typical Dolan move. This is what a joke. But guys, we're 22 games over 500.
I think they're up to 23. I think it's 45
23
and
now. Yeah. Shut up. Seriously, if we didn't have anything to complain about, we wouldn't be sports fans. Like Dolan hasn't been a part of what this is.
here's
He
the thing
hasn't
though.
been, his son is running the show.
That's also
And
a silly take because
yeah,
money has really nothing to do with it at this point. Like
yeah,
to say
exactly.
trades aren't always about money. And yeah, maybe there was some limitations in terms of Blake Snell because he makes like 38 million next year, but he wasn't traded.
Right.
He wasn't traded by anybody. So to also go back to your point, I want to bring up one more pitcher that was traded is Yusei Kikuchi. And in terms of,
Yeah.
of how much was given up. The Astros gave up their number 3 prospect, who is a pitcher, and their number 22 prospect. A, I, I don't know if I wanted to give up a top 5 prospect. Like, would you want to give up Kyle Manzardo for Yusei Kikuchi and his 4.75 ERA? No.
No.
Would you want to give up Delauder or Churio or Ralphie Velasquez for a pitcher, a rental pitcher, by the way, with a 4.75 ERA? No, I would not.
The only
again,
chance I'm going all in is if you can get me a player that's going to hit 40 home runs and 150 RBIs and be a great protected hitter for Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor. That's when you kind of push your chips in and go all in. Listen, we have gone this far with not having Shane Bieber, our ace. We've gone this far having Tristan McKenzie lost in outer space and struggling to find it.
yeah,
Logan Allen struggling to find it.
right.
Ben Lively was a Rule 5 scrap heap pickup, and he's been one of our best pitchers. Tanner Bybee, an unknown kid that came up through the ranks and has pretty much put this rotation on his back. You've got Cookie
Pedro
Carrasco,
Avila was
who's
pulled off of the waiver wire.
right, another waiver pickup, and he's done pretty well here in Cleveland. Cookie Carrasco, yes, having Cookie back is awesome from the sediment, the sediment of having him here. Perfect. It's a great story. He's not pitching well, guys. We know that. He's 37 years old. Now, everybody's, oh, Alex Cobb's 37, but Alex Cobb's a former All-Star. Last year, he was an All-Star. All I need him to do is throw 5 innings, keep us in the ball game. We've got left-hander Matthew Boyd, who's making another rehab start. He's going to join the team. Today, the Guardians announced left-handed reliever Sam Henches sent to Columbus for a rehab assignment. He's coming back soon. We're going to have some reinforcements on the way.
So
Let's not forget.
That's why I said, like, I think it was a creative move given the scenarios and given the situation they were in. Will it work? We're not sure. You know, it may not, but I think it was a nice creative move. And maybe Cobb isn't an all-star caliber pitcher for you as he returns, but I think it was a nice risk to take for something that could help you out. And
Right.
you know, given, like I said, given the scenarios, given the situation, here's the other thing. Like, you know, I listened to some sports talk radio, and you know, people were talking about Fetty and Flaherty, and be honest, how many people knew who those guys were before like 2 days ago? I mean,
Fetty was
maybe
an
you did.
all-star.
Maybe
Fetty was, well, I'm not your average baseball fan either. I dive into this stuff. Like when we started needing starting pitching help, I immediately started researching who potential trade targets
yeah.
could be for the Guardians. I
But
knew
like
who Eric Fetty
people
was.
people are
Jack
mad.
Flaherty has had injury history all day long. He's pitched for different teams, and guess what? They didn't re-sign him because guess what? His injuries. He went to Detroit on a 1-year, $14 million deal. Detroit took a chance on him, and it helped him. He's pitched well. He ends up going to the Dodgers, which who else wants to go play for the Dodgers? Is Babe Ruth getting reincarnated? And like, what more do the Dodgers need, folks? You throw money at a problem, it doesn't make it go away.
So the other thing too was, you know, I had people asking me like, okay, well, do you think that they did enough to get to the World Series? And I said, really, I don't know. So you know, I thought about it some more, and it honestly depends. And Antonetti said this. It does depend on the guys that are already here. If they play like they did in May, we're going to the World Series. If they play like they did in July, we're getting bounced in the first round. It's
Yep.
really as simple as that.
Baseball is a very long 162 game process. There are going to be a lot of peaks and valleys. We're
Yeah.
in that valley right now, but I have a feeling, folks, we're coming out of that valley and we're about ready to peak, and we're gonna hit. All it takes is for us to get hot at the right time. Look at the Phillies last year. They got hot at the right time. Look at the Diamondbacks. Look at the Texas Rangers. These teams have gotten hot at the right time. You get into the playoffs and anything's possible. Give me Ben Lively and
Bybee
Matt
and Gavin.
Boyd and Bybee, and give me those guys that started the season with us. Throw in Alex Cobb. Okay. Give me 5 innings. Let's turn it over to the best bullpen in baseball, which has some reinforcements on the way. I like our chances. The reason I'm wearing the Major League shirt is because of why there's only one thing left to do. That's it. One
Yeah.
thing left to do, and that's win the whole effing thing.
So
That simple.
you mentioned the best bullpen in baseball, and you mentioned go 5 innings. Uh, Earlier today, I did a little bit of research about the 2016 playoffs and the average number of innings that our three pitchers, and we really only had three starters for that run
Yeah.
in Kluber, Bauer, and Tomlin, and how far they went on average each game. Kluber averaged 5 2/3 per start. Bauer averaged 4 innings per start, and I excluded the drone game. I took that one out because it was only 2/3 of an inning. And
Yeah.
Tomlin averaged 4 1/3 per start. You telling
So
me,
that's all we
you telling me
need.
Bybee, Gavin, and Lively can't do that? And then you had
Yeah, we
that
got
spot start by
Gavin. I
Ryan
forgot
Merritt,
Gavin.
and he went 4 1/3.
Oh, Ryan Merritt was amazing. Love that guy.
But he only
I
went
don't know
four
what
and a
his
third, and then you turned it over to the
right,
bullpen. You turned it over to
right.
Andrew Miller and those rest of those guys, and Cody Allen
That's all we
and
have
Bryan
to do,
Shaw.
guys.
So
No team
you
in
get four to
baseball has
five, and then you
right.
push the bullpen. Because keep in mind,
You
in most of
one
those
to two
playoff
times through the
games,
rotation. That's it. One
you're
to two
getting
times through the rotation.
you're getting days off
Hmm.
too. Your built-in days off, whether it's one or two. So the bullpen would have time to rest in between those playoff games. So, you don't need your starters going six in the postseason like you do in the regular season.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. And you also don't need to be five deep in the postseason
No.
because the days
You'll
off.
probably run with 3 or 4.
Yeah.
If it's a 7-game series, you'll probably run with 4 pitchers, 4 starters. You need to just get through the order 2 times. Turn it over to the best bullpen in baseball. That's all we have to do, folks. Our offense is getting the job done. Yeah, they're not setting the world on fire like they were in April and May, but they're getting the job done. And we play well against good teams.
So
For
overall,
whatever reason,
what do you give the trade deadline grade? What would you
I'm
say?
gonna give it a C for now. And I think that I want to see Lane Thomas healthy. I want to see what he can do with this lineup. And I want to see what Alex Cobb can do healthy. And that grade could probably increase to a B. If we make it to the World Series, it's an A because
Yeah.
it got us to where we needed to go. And that's why I've always trusted our front office and I don't listen to the naysayers of, oh, it's Cleveland. They'll find a way to blow it. They'll figure out how to screw it up. And of
Well,
course,
then
well,
why
they got
watch?
two
Yeah.
because it's their fans and that's what they do. They complain. It's all good. I'm ready. Let's go. Buckle up. Second half starts. We got August. We have September. Our schedule is hellacious in
You know what?
August.
We
It's
heard
gonna
that
be
though. We
yeah,
heard that for earlier, and guess what? We took 2 or 3 from Philly.
yeah. So
Guess what? You
all
were
all we
talking
got to
about
do is keep
having
winning.
that we were, 20, 23 games above 500. Um, hey, who has the best record in baseball right now?
We do. We're
All
tied,
of
baby.
baseball.
Let's go. Let's go. We're
Not
tied
tied
with
with
the
the Phillies. No.
well, we have the
Phillies lost
tiebreaker.
today.
We have the
The Phillies
tiebreaker if
already
it's the
lost today.
Phillies. It's us, baby. It's the Cleveland Guardians, number 1. Let's go. Why, if it's not broke, why fix it? We added a couple of pieces to get us to the finish line. And let's see what happens.
Yeah,
This is why it's exciting.
to say that they can't be capable of going farther because and listen, I understand that there's holes on this team. Brian Rocchio has not been good. Go look at Philly's Twitter right now. They're melting down too because they're on a big slide at the moment. They are having a
The
tough time.
Dodgers are hurting. The Yankees earlier this year were hurting.
Yeah,
They're
Yankees have
starting to figure
won
it out.
4 or 5 in a row now, but 2 weeks
Jazz
ago,
Chisholm has 2 back-to-back 2-homer games.
yeah.
Go
But
figure.
Yankees fans they were
They were
freaking out
ready to
2 weeks
set the
ago.
team on fire and fire Aaron Boone and like blow the team up and start all over. And now they're winning. So that's the story of baseball. Baseball tells such a beautiful story. We're in the middle now, folks. We're
Not
getting
for
to
the
the
weak of
best
heart,
part.
that's for sure.
We're getting to the end, which is where the excitement happens. Let's go. We got 2 more months and let's get into the postseason and see what this team can do.
All right,
We're
Mike.
not
Well,
the
where
White
can people
Sox.
find you?
It could always be worse, right?
That's right. We could be the
You can
White
find me
Sox.
on we could be the White Sox. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Mike Vorhies. Brian, where can they find you and us?
I'm at WXSHAW, putting my statistics out to the world for all to see. You can find us at Guardcast MLB. You can find us on Facebook at the same place. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. So if you're listening on Spotify, you can watch us on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube and you just want to listen, you can find us over on Spotify and over on Apple iTunes as well on our podcast. So come check us out. I hope you enjoyed our measured approach to the deadline. I'll give it a B minus right now. Obviously I would have loved them to get like the best players available, but if they weren't traded, they weren't traded. What are you going to do about it?
Hey, guess what? I've said this 100 times, and I'm probably going to say it 100 more. Buckle up. Keep your hands, feet, and all other objects inside the car at all times. We're on a roller coaster, baby. Let's go. It's Guardian season. It's time. Let's go. Go Guards.